Hello to you, fellow being. Infinite Spiral here, and we are back again in Kerbal Space Program. Now, in our previous episode, we managed to land this Gilly conversion lander, as I have renamed it, here on Gilly with the extremely minimal gravity, so much so that it's, barely even holding the lander down. And, yeah, I called it the conversion lander because of the weird engine setup and all that good stuff. I'm pretty sure that this nuclear engine wasn't even necessary just because there's a fuel threshold for when the nuclear engine becomes really efficient, and I don't think I have enough fuel on this thing, so yeah, it's a little bit wasteful maybe, sort of extra weight without enough extra thrust or enough extra ISP, I'm not entirely certain, but yeah, so today we are going to take this thing back to Kerbin, and we're not going to land it on Kerbin, which was the original plan, because I forgot to put parachutes on this thing again. So we're just going to go get into a Kerbin orbit, and we'll have to conduct a rescue mission after that. But that's going to be another episode, so for now we're just going to take this thing back to Kerbin, and we'll go ahead and start that process now. But once we do that, we are then going to begin Phase 2 of this Gilly Eve mission. The Gilly part will just be this thing getting back and bringing the science back, but the Eve part, we have to bring an asteroid out to Eve. Oh, hello. RCS? Or not RCS, but SAS was not on. That would be useful. So, what are we looking like here? We are massively parabolic. Okay. So, we just need to burn basically out of the Eve system. I don't think we're going to get a nice, easy Kerbin encounter because we are way ahead of Kerbin, and it's going to take multiple passes, I think, before we get an encounter with Kerbin. So, that's something we're going to have to deal with. I think I'm just going to establish a big parabolic, or not parabolic, but a fairly eccentric orbit around Kerbol, and then we will have to wait for multiple revolutions before we get that encounter, and while that is happening, I'm going to go do the other mission, so that should save us a bit of time. Like, we don't really have any time-sensitive missions, so it's not going to be too big of a deal. The orbital station around Eve is the only time-sensitive one, and that has like 33 years left, I believe. I think it was total of 34 before we started all this, so yeah, we have lots of time to complete all of that. This other mission, the Moon 3 course, that has 80 some odd years before we have to worry about that, so that should be just fine. But what we need to do is figure out what direction we're gonna exit. So I think, obviously we have to burn Eve prograde to push our orbit out to Kerbin's. And so I just needed to get a look and see what that was going to look like. And I think it's going to be out here, which, I don't know, maybe we just burn straight towards Eve, sort of. That's kind of what it looks like, although I don't totally know. In any case, what we need to do before we get to any of that is convert back to the nuclear engine. So now we get to go through the manual shutdown process, since I screwed up my action group when I set it up. Now, I looked into it a little bit, and it is definitely possible to alter your action groups after the fact, but only with a certain mod. So in the core game, you establish action groups during the building of your craft, and you're sort of stuck with what you set up, so you got to get it right. Let's retract those gears, get oriented. No, upside down was the way we wanted to be, because the hatch is on the on the belly of the beast, the belly of the lander, so it's sort of a design flaw, makes things a little bit weird, but anyway. So we've got that going, just need to figure out our escape vector. So we're going to time warp up to Apoapsis. No, we're not. We are too low for time warp. And apoapsis is above 8,000, so we'll just physical warp to it, I guess. Yeah, we're almost at 8,000, so that won't take too long. There we go. A little bit of non-physical time warp. And here we are at the apoapsis, roughly. And I guess we're just gonna burn, east. Sure. We're already pointed that way, that sounds good. That'll probably escape Gilly pretty rapidly. So there's orbit, and there's escape. So that puts us in an orbit of Eve that looks like that. And from there we can warp again until the escape. Oh, hurry up. Okay, we have escaped from Eve, and we are now orbiting. Sorry, we escaped from Gilly, not Eve, and we are now orbiting Eve, and we're still too close to Gilly. We're getting some slight encounters with it, so I'm just going to do a slight skyward burn real quick, a radial out. Not much, just a tiny bit, to get us a little further from Gilly. Of course, all that really accomplishes is to make Gilly orbit faster than us and catch up to us, so maybe that wasn't the best option. I really would like to just get away from it. What is happening here? I have lost control and I don't know why. We have power. Are we in time warp that I don't know about? Yes, we were. Okay. Yep, gotta be careful about that. If you're in time warp, you can't control things. So let's just try again to get away from Gilly. There we go. Okay. Back to map screen. Find out just where we need to make this burn. Close to the periapsis, apparently. So, roughly there. Just gonna burn accidental mouse wheeling over the normal or anti-normal node or handle. Yes, handle. Okay, so we're just gonna push out to Kerbin orbit roughly, and once we get out to that apoapsis, then we can, do some sort of maneuver to speed things along. I'm not gonna make the same mistake that I made on my return trip from Duna, which was to actually match Kerbin's orbit roughly almost entirely, and then orbit for like a decade. that was bad. I treated it like a rendezvous, and it was a very, very time inefficient way to handle that, so I learned my lesson. I won't be doing that again. So let's just warp to this maneuver, which is apparently a 1.5 minute long burn, and we'll basically just start it. It's not, I think, extremely time sensitive. Might be slightly more efficient to actually, yeah, let's actually push a little past where I set up the maneuver, because, yeah, that looks like the right spot. So we'll just burn prograde right here and ignore the maneuver node. In fact, we will delete the maneuver node. Okay, so here comes the Eve escape, like so, and then we just watch this orbital trajectory push out to Kerbin, and that will take a little bit of time. I'll go ahead and fast forward that for you. Alright, so we've pushed out to roughly Kerbin's path, and we will have to adjust our inclination as we get out there. I think I'm going to do that before I get over to the asteroid launch mission, or asteroid capture and redirect mission rather, because that's going to also take some time to get done, and I don't want to rush past, the opportunity to correct and get an idea of when we'll be able to have an intercept. So let's just warp out to here. Let's also set Kerbin as our target so we can see where that needs to be done. And yeah, I would have been way off. I was going to do it over here, and the node is here, so glad I chose that course of action. Alright, so we need to burn, I believe, normal would be the node that we need to point at. That's anti-normal, so not totally certain about this, but I think this is where we need to be. So let's just give it a quick test. 2.6. Okay, yes. And we will go ahead and put on the normal hold. I remember to use that hold button. I don't always, but this time I did. I feel like these are slightly inaccurate, because, I mean, clearly it's not pointing directly at the center of the thing, but also, like, they're a little bit inefficient, because, you know, the engine ends up gimbaling back and forth. Maybe the nuclear engine doesn't really have much gimbal. Or any? I'm not sure. I don't know if that information would be on this screen, but if it is, then it doesn't. But in either case, we need to be keeping an eye on this, because it is changing sort of rapidly, maybe not extremely rapidly. But yeah, we went through about a quarter of our tank of fuel just burning out to the Kerbin, or to the higher apoapsis. So I'm not totally certain that we're going to have enough fuel to do this effectively, and when we get our Kerbin encounter, we are absolutely going to have to air brake in order to get a Kerbin orbit. So it's going to be a little bit hairy. I didn't set this thing up quite right, and now that is getting close, so we will continue this normal burn as we warp towards that node again. Like so. Okay. And we've got 0 degrees, that will work just perfectly. So right now, yeah, on this pass, our closest approach is right, we're almost at it, and Kerbin is way back here, so yeah, clearly we are not going to have an easy Kerbin encounter here. And like I said, it's going to take multiple passes to get to it. And I think, I don't know, I sort of want to save my fuel, because as I've said, this is not the best craft. I didn't set it up extremely well. I thought it was working well. It looked really cool, but yeah, clearly it's not the best. But I think if we save this fuel and just go around multiple times for the best approach, or at least a decent approach, we might be able to salvage this mission. So I'm just going to test this out, see what kind of a retro burn, so that would be another quarter tank already or more. And that gets us an approach there, with Kerbin way out in front of us. And keeping up the retro burn drags those closer and closer together, but this is an insane burn that I can't do anymore, so clearly that's not going to work. Whereas, you know, you can test out a lot of different ways to approach this. You can radial in and out and do all sorts of stuff, but basically there's only so much you can do if you don't have the ideal approach with the positioning of the planets, which I do not. When I went from Kerbin to Eve and Gilly, that was pretty much the ideal positioning of those planets. It wasn't even planned that way, it just worked out really well in my favor. It was sort of fortuitous. But yeah, you can, you know, futz around with these to watch these little approaches jump back and forth, but when you get down to it, I don't think that it's going to work with this positioning. So yeah, I'm going to go with the original plan of just letting it pass multiple times as we catch up to Kerbin, which will happen after some number of years. Hopefully less than 80, I guess, but in any case, it doesn't matter if the mission keeps going longer than the other contracts. We can just go do those as well while it's happening. So, now that that is established, we are going to go back to Kerbin, back to the Space Center rather, and begin the second phase of the Eve mission, which we will do by launching this, the Evesteroid Delivery Service, Phase 2. Phase 1 was the, you know, Eve, Gilly, Gargantua Gilly Eve, Phase 1 part of the mission. This is Phase 2. It's the part that brings the asteroid out. So we've got this thing, and it's nice. It should work, hopefully. Yeah, it's basically the same old design we've been using, because it seems decently effective. I did replace the last asparagus stage with these poodle engines instead of skippers, because they're more efficient, and I think that's going to be necessary. But the overall plan is to go and capture that asteroid and just push it into Eve, and then, you know, get it up to a rendezvous with the Gargantua Phase 1 station, or Station Phase 1? Not totally certain what I renamed it, but that's the basic plan. But before we can get to that, we need to upgrade our tracking station, because that allows us to track unowned objects, which is what the asteroids are called. So now, I have done that, and the asteroids begin appearing. We need to wait for a Class B asteroid, because that's what the contract calls for. We have to build the facility into a newly discovered Class B asteroid. So, I could have actually done this differently. You know, I could have upgraded the tracking station and then captured the asteroid and built the station into it and then brought that whole thing out there and then put it into orbit around Eve. That, you know, I don't know if either way is, well, that probably would have been the more efficient way, but that's not how we did it. I wanted to, you know, get that Gilly lander out there. I really wanted to go to Gilly. So that was how we did it. So instead, we have to wait for a Class B to show up and bring it out to the station that is already in orbit. So now I get to basically just wait around for a Class B. I'm going to go ahead and time warp, because I'm pretty sure they do show up in time warp. Yes, they do. So, what are all of these? We've got a Class D, Class C, Class C. And yeah, they seem to be totally random. I really hope that a Class B shows up decently close to Kerbin, because unlike planets and moons and such, you can't plan maneuvers, or rather, you can't set these things as targets. It makes it a lot more difficult, because you can't see their orbits, you can't do anything with them, you have to sort of do everything visually on this map screen, and you have to plan ahead for what's going to happen with your orbit. It's rough. And having never really done it before, I mean, you know, just with orbital mechanics, you can see what's happening. Oh, not trying to look at Minmus. Stop telling me. Okay, things disappeared and reappeared. What have we got now? Bunch of Class C's. Still no B's. Okay, and D, C, A, C. But yeah, so, I mean, with orbital mechanics, the way that they work, you end up, you know, passing these things on the inside. So you have to really be very smooth with your planning. You have to really know what you're doing, and having never done this before, I do not. Come on, give me a Class B already. Alright, I'm about to exit Time Warp and see what's going on with the Gilly conversion lander. Well, it's there, and it's still catching up, so it's got a ways to go. Let's head back over here and keep hoping for the Class B to show up. Oh, there we go. We've got a Class B, and it is pretty far away. I gotta tell you, I'm not a huge fan of that. So I have made an attempt at this once already. That's part of why Friday's episode did not come out, because being so unfamiliar with this and not knowing how it works, I just failed over and over again and just royally screwed it up. And if I had put the episode out, it would have just been me bitching and moaning for an hour and then eventually rage quitting. I don't think anybody wanted to see that, so that was my decision-making process there. So now that we have this Class B in sight, I have to try to figure out exactly how I need to get to that. So, I mean, clearly I need to launch out, and we need to approach from the inside, and we can't just point straight at the thing. Or, you know, we get this massively eccentric orbit around Kerbal, and it's really hard to predict how that's going to work. And beyond that, it also costs a lot of fuel, so it's pretty inefficient. But if we push out from Kerbin, you know, we're going to be orbiting Kerbal, and we'll be inside of the Class B asteroid's orbit, and we'll be, you know, catching up to it very rapidly. So either we have to... I don't even know if they're permanent, if they, you know, keep existing after you stop tracking them. If they are, then, you know, it's possible to have some sort of very, you know, large orbit where you go around multiple times to get into that encounter. And honestly, I probably should have looked up, you know, like a tutorial on how to get to these things. That might have been a more effective way to do this, but I think I can do it. I don't know. I like to try and, you know, learn myself. So I think we're just going to go for the launch. I mean, we have to do that anyway. So at the very least, we will start our launch and get into orbit. Okay, so apparently my decision to replace those skippers with poodles was massively inefficient. I don't know, maybe it's exactly the same. It's just most of our burning for establishing this orbit was actually more radial out than prograde, which is not good. I mean, we were pointed towards the sky for almost all of it. Let's go ahead and get our solar panels going, since we are on a battery with a probe core right now, and we do not want to run out of energy. That would be pretty terrible. But with that now done, now comes the difficult part. Planning this escape and trajectory for intercepting this Class B asteroid, if it even is tracked in. Okay, there it is. I was going to say if it's even being tracked anymore, which it is. So now I thought that viewing this thing in the tracking station might give me more information about it. It doesn't. It just tells me, you know, how big a Class B is, which is not very useful information for wait, is that... Damn, I thought it said Class B for a second. I was like, that's closer, but also behind us. So I think it would probably... I don't know, the closer would be easier, I think. And yeah, I think I don't know if they even show up inside of Kerbin's orbit. It seems like they're always outside of it. So I guess that actually makes perfect sense, because that's when you are looking out from the night side of the planet and seeing the lit up side of the asteroids. That's okay. Perfect. That makes sense. If you were trying to track them on the inside, you'd be looking at the sun, and that's, you know, difficult. So in any case, I guess I don't... It's rough. I don't really know what I'm doing with this. I mean, we have to get to the right inclination with it. It looks like it's slightly below Kerbin. So we basically need to plan to escape Kerbin and be burning Kerbol prograde. So we're going to add a maneuver there, which is not quite right. We want to be diametrically opposed to Kerbol, like that. And we'll get out to this screen and try our best to get this right. So apparently once we escape Kerbin, because we're still so close to the surface, we have sort of a massive orbit. Yeah, that's not great. The problem that I ran into with my initial attempt was that when we escape Kerbin, it's a hello moon encounter, but yeah, when we escape Kerbin, because we're trying to get to something that's outside of Kerbin's orbit, you know, the second we escape and are going beyond, it was sort of close, and we ended up getting recaptured by Kerbin over and over because, you know, it kept passing us on the inside, but we weren't far enough away to let it just pass by without grabbing us. So it's really tough. And if the objects are persistent, then I think it would be a better idea to go for an approach that's on the opposite side. Because I really don't know. So, you know, by the time Kerbin gets over there, they will probably only have gone maybe 2/3 the distance, I would guess. I don't know how to judge that. I mean, you could do math to figure it out, and maybe that's actually necessary. This might be the kind of thing that you can't do just by playing it like a video game, at least with any sort of, you know, lack of frustration. I don't know, I think... You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna cancel this. I'm gonna pause this recording for a moment, and I'm gonna go look up how to do this correctly, because I don't want to struggle with it for 2 more hours and end up not putting out another episode today. That would really bother me. And I'm sure it would bother you as well. So I'm not going to do that to you. Alright, sound good? Be right back. Okay, so after trying for a while to find, you know, an up-to-date tutorial or just information on it, on how to do this that's, you know, somewhat more modern, it seems like nobody's really making any guides, you know, post 1.0 for how to get to asteroids. And all the pre 1.0 things seemed to have, I don't know, like they had different screens and different things that they were looking at than I am. So I feel like I'm just missing something, because I'm gonna go back to the Space Center and look at these things from the tracking station, because it seems like I should be able to see these things' trajectories, but I'm definitely not getting that on the map screen, and I'm not getting it here on the Space Center or the tracking station either. So I don't know how I'm supposed to see the trajectory that these things have. That was something that was definitely like visible on all the screens in the tutorials that I was watching, so I don't know if they took that out or if there's something else that I need to upgrade before I can see that. It's very confusing to me. So I'm going to just back out of here and see if upgrading any of my buildings will, you know, change things. I don't think it's going to, though. Yeah, I mean, the tracking station is fully upgraded, and as is the VAB and everything else. I mean, the R&D isn't, but, you know, nothing changes on the full upgraded version except for the research science limit. So, yeah, I think they changed something between, you know, the original Asteroid Redirect Mission and the 1.0 release. Either that or my game is just bugged. In either case, I'm unable to see what the trajectory of these asteroids is, so all I can assume is that they're on a Kerbal orbit, which may or may not be the case. This thing might have, you know, some really ridiculous parabolic arc going, you know, on an escape trajectory, or it might have a really eccentric orbit where it comes out, or maybe it's actually orbiting circular between Duna and Kerbin. I don't know. There's apparently no way to find that information out. So I'm just going to do this to the best of my ability, which will be to escape Kerbin, try to match inclination, and just try to burn out to it on this pass, because I have no guarantee that the thing is, you know, not consistent, what's the word? Persistent. I have no guarantee that it's a persistent object, that it won't disappear after I leave its area. And I'm just going to go for it. And because I'm taking this approach, I'm probably going to run out of fuel. It's going to be very massively inefficient. But I don't really know what else I would have to do. I mean, the one major thing seems to be choosing the right asteroid, which this one is definitely not. If I wanted something that was going to work more effectively, it would have to be much closer to Kerbin. So close, in fact, that it would be, you know, entering Kerbin's sphere of influence. That would be a much easier task. But I don't know if I want to wait around that long. I guess what I can do, I will quick save right here, and I'm going to do a massive time warp and see what we get in terms of these asteroids spawning and despawning. If we can get one that's much closer to Kerbin, then that's what I'm going to go for. But if we can't, then I'll just reload that autosave, or not autosave, the quick save I just made, and go for the straight burn. Alright, so let's get to that. Okay, so after time warping for, I want to say about half of a year, managed to get this object here, this Class B asteroid, to appear relatively close to Kerbin. Very close, actually. I mean, you can see the moon orbit is there, so it's, you know, like 5 times that distance, but that is very, very close. Not quite as close as this Class C, well, actually they're about the same distance. It's always that perspective problem. But I think that's the one we're going to go for, and it is still ahead of us, so we'll be catching up to it, and it's not that far. So what we're going to do is basically just go for a straight Kerbin escape opposite it, because that'll slingshot us out that way, and, you know, the inclination isn't exact. We're going to have to alter that as we get out too. So I think best way would be to change our inclination about here. I mean, it'll be really inefficient to change that inclination this close to Kerbin, so it would be better if I could do it after I escape. I think that might be the better approach. Let's just see what kind of a burn that's going to be. So we push it out, and also swing it down. Not quite that far. Just going to push it out to the maximum Kerbin orbit, while also looking at the inclination so we can see sort of what it's going to look like in terms of approaching that asteroid. I believe, yeah, that's the one. So yeah, it definitely needs to be pretty extreme. So that sort of points us straight at it on the Kerbin escape, but not quite so much on the Kerbol orbit. And that's also a sizable burn. Very sizable indeed. Roughly twice our current velocity. And that sends us out that direction. Do we go through Kerbin? No, we don't. Okay, that's good. So that sends us out there. And at that point, then we will be traveling that way. And we should meet up with it right about there. I think that will be the way to do it, and it's gonna have to be this this particular trajectory. I think that's the best approach. So when we get out to there, yeah, that's actually, I think, too much inclination change, which is actually where most of our delta V is coming from. So if we drag that up a bit, because we want to match that inclination right about where we should meet up with the asteroid, so that's right there. So it is that one, yes. Got to keep track of that. So, well, actually that... yeah, that actually does look like pretty much the right spot, so it is going to be this burn. Okay. Well, let's go for it. Let's get pointed in the right direction. And, you know, we still have a little ways to go. I don't know how long of a burn it's going to be. And, you know, we're also going to lose basically 2/3 of our thrust part of the way through the burn. So we're definitely going to have to start burning before it projects we should. So I'm just going to go full throttle for a fraction of a second to see what the estimated burn time is. And then I will make an adjustment mentally from there. Probably be way off, but I'll do my best. Okay, that's not nearly as bad as I thought. It's only a 4-minute burn. So, and that's before we lose 2/3 of our thrust. So, I guess we should double that amount, 1.5 or 2.5 times that amount. So, call it like a 10-minute burn, which we probably don't have the fuel for. I don't know, we're also going to be dropping mass at the same time that we lose the thrust, so... yeah. I guess I'll aim for roughly an 8-minute burn. So, we want to stop our warp about 4 minutes before the node. So So the node is at T-minus 9 minutes, so we want the spot that we'll be at T-minus 5. Right about there. Okay, let's start this burn and hope for the best. Now, there was a comment... oh, I think we just lost that thrust. Yep. Okay, there goes that stage, and... well, I was pretty close. It turned into a 9-minute burn. So we should have started a little bit earlier, but I think we should be able to salvage it, provided that we even have enough fuel. Which I think we will. I'm pretty sure we can manage this. Maybe. And then, of course, it's a question of... if we get to the asteroid, will we be able to have enough fuel to redirect it all the way into Eve, which that's going to be a challenge all in itself, but I guess we'll just see when we get to it. But anyway, yeah, there was a question from, I believe, Brent Geary, and you mentioned a number of mods that I should check into, and I'm definitely going to look into those. I can't guarantee that I'll use all of them, or necessarily any of them. I might. I mean, some of them definitely sounded interesting. One of them I was curious about is the what was it? The gear, rover gear sounds, because you said something about the rover gears, the wheels rather, not having any sound, which I haven't messed with rovers at all, so I'm not familiar with it. Just on the surface, I can understand why they wouldn't make sound, since, you know, the majority of the celestial bodies that you roll around on don't have atmosphere. So it would make sense to me that they don't have sound, but at the same time, you know, they would still transfer, I guess, force down into the planet, or the celestial body's surface. So there would be like a base rumbling at the very least. You know, there's no force feedback on a PC game most of the time. I guess unless you're using like a Xbox controller or something. God, I wouldn't even want to try this game with that. That would be rough. But yeah, so I'm curious about that, and whether it just adds sound in all atmospheres, all situations regardless of atmosphere, or if it actually has, you know, specific things for that. Another one you mentioned was something about lights. You mentioned the lights in the stock game being disappointing. I'm actually kind of curious what you mean by that, because I haven't really messed with the lights very much. I use them to light up my landings just to see, you know, the distance to the ground, and every once in a while I'll throw in some to light up my ship when I'm in deep space. I haven't really done that in the series very much, but yeah, that's about all the experience I have with the lighting, and I'm just curious what you find disappointing about the lighting in the game, the light systems that they give us access to. So please feel free to you know, leave another comment answering that. I'm actually really curious to hear from you. So yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this burn for you, because this is definitely going to take a bit more time. Oh, but before I do that, I do want to answer another comment. Previously, a commenter had, I believe it was Chips Handon Jr., it might have been somebody else, had mentioned that you can use this stage-only checkmark to see how much fuel you're going to have, you know, for keeping an eye on it from the map screen. But even with that enabled, it still doesn't keep track of how much is in, you know, the individual tanks that you have for your asparagus staging. You know, it keeps track of all of the fuel tanks that are engaged for that stage. So if you have an asparagus staged ship, the fuel tanks themselves are all, you know, even the ones that are going to get dropped and the ones that are still going to stay on, all of those are engaged at the same time in the stage. So it doesn't let you keep an eye on that in real time. There was mention of a mod that will let you do that, and that would be definitely more effective. But in terms of using the map screen and keeping an eye on your fuel for asparagus staged ships, just doesn't really work in the stock game. So still have to jump out of map screen, and besides which, as mentioned before, you do have to jump out of the map screen anyway just to do the staging when you reach that time. But yeah, I tested that out after seeing the stage-only option mentioned, because I hadn't actually noticed that option before, but yeah, it doesn't quite work the way you would want. And that looks like we have already crossed it, so that's not good. If this was going to go the right way, we would have finished it just as we approached that crossing. So yeah, this absolutely could have been done better, I think. I don't know, we'll just have to see. Anyway, back to the fast forwarding. Alright, so we have our escape trajectory, and that Class B is right there. And we do appear to be sort of close to the planned maneuver. Not exactly, I already deleted it, but yeah, so we're coming out to the same inclination as it, seemingly. If I can just find Kerbin's orbital plane, there, it's about there. So we come out to that object right about there, and at that point we do seem to be pretty close to the same distance from it. So provided that it's orbiting Kerbal at roughly the same distance, we should meet up with it around there, hopefully. So we're just going to go ahead and time warp until we get out there. I'm also going to come out and take a look at, yeah, the Gilly conversion lander. I just wanted to see where it was in relation to Kerbin, because it's still catching up. We did do a bit of time warping, and it caught up a bit more in that time, but it's not quite there yet. When it does get out to its periapsis, or apoapsis rather, I think I am going to just make a maneuver and see what sort of encounter I can get with Kerbin, if any, but it's going to be a while before we get there, so we're going to keep time warping. Okay, and yeah, we're not catching up extremely fast. Apparently it has a bit more velocity than I expected, which means it's probably not orbiting Kerbal in exactly that path that I was hoping for. That's not good. Means it's probably on an escape trajectory, which means we'll never catch it on this attempt. Well, back to the time warping, just to find out. Yep, now we're going outside of it, and it's past us, and we'll never catch back up to it. So I am gonna just go switch back to the Gilly lander, or the, yeah, conversion lander. Because it does seem to be approaching Kerbin somewhat. Probably not quite fast enough, but yeah, there's Kerbin at our closest approach, which is right there. However, if we were to make an adjustment here at the ascending node for no reason other than it's a handy marker, do a radial in, I believe, would allow us to... No, that's not doing it. I thought that would, you know, allow us to stay on the inside of Kerbin's path and catch up a bit faster, but apparently that's not exactly what needs to be done. Okay, looks like nothing successful. What if we do it sooner? Just keep messing around with these possible options. Let's see if we can get something on this pass. That looks like an actual... Oh, never mind. I was wrong. It doesn't look like anything. Okay, so it looks like if we do a maneuver at the apoapsis of our current orbit, we can actually, you know, we have to push our orbit sort of out closer to Kerbin's, and that's going to cost us a little over 500 meters per second of delta V. Not entirely certain that we have that, but we can at least, I guess, go for an attempt at it, because it's looking like that's the only approach, or the only way to really get to anything close to a Kerbin encounter on this particular approach. So we'll just time warp and hit the quick save. Let's see if we can control the Gilly conversion. Oh, we already are controlling it. Never mind. I'm a fool. Alright, so let us just hit full throttle for a second, see what kind of burn it's going to be, because we're still a ways away, but I would like to find out. 2-minute burn. That is pretty much all of our fuel, and the current maneuver that I've got set up does come down to 35 kilometers above Kerbin, so that is in atmosphere, and depending on how heavily that slows us down, we might get captured. But if we don't have any fuel at that point, we won't be able to fix our orbit so that we don't just keep decaying and crash into Kerbin. So I really hope that we have some fuel left after we make this burn. But let's go ahead and warp to the maneuver. And we missed the maneuver. Damn you, the warp feature. It's just so buggy. So touchy. Well, let's try for it anyway, because it's relatively close. And we're just going to see if we have the fuel for this. And if this burn doesn't get us there, we can go back to that quick save, because it was very recent, and I feel no shame in doing that just to salvage a mission. Okay. And we absolutely have a Kerbin encounter. We've actually got a moon encounter right now. So let's burn a little bit past that. There we go. And we're going to keep bringing that periapsis in. Just the tiniest adjustment. Oh my goodness, it happened so fast. Okay, that is really low in the atmosphere. That would probably kill everything on the ship. So I'm going to have to bring that up a bit. Just rotating is making massive changes. But I think just a slight retro burn. Yeah, the tiniest amount of burn makes sort of large changes. So what if we burn radial out? Maybe that's slightly less sensitive? Yes, it is. Excellent. We're going to bring that down to right about there, 33. And that's about as good as we're going to get. So now we basically have to go almost an entire year before that encounter. But I believe we're going to try for it. So here comes the warp, and we will finish up the episode finding out whether or not I get captured. And I do still have a bit of fuel left, so that's at least slightly hopeful, I suppose. Anyway, see you in the encounter. Alright, here we are, being grabbed by Kerbin. And our periapsis has definitely changed a bit during the time warp. I mean, it just wasn't accurate enough because we were too far from it, but yeah, we're just going to do a slight, ever so slight retro burn. I think that should bring it in. Yeah, that doesn't do as much as I thought. Maybe. I mean, we don't have much fuel to mess around, but we should be okay. I think a radial in would definitely do the job. Yeah. Okay. Kerbin periapsis at 32. We're going to quick save right here. And find out if we survive the aero brake maneuver. Alright, let's bring our solar panels in just for safety. And try and do this engine first, I think. God, a nuclear engine, I don't know if that has... it's an engine, so it should be able to withstand a bit higher temperature, but still, it's a little scary putting the nuclear part into the burn. But I think it's a little bit safer than leaving the, docking port and battery and RCS tanks. I think those are slightly more sensitive, but here we come. Oh, goodness. And let's also keep an eye on this screen. Okay, we've got Kerbin orbit, so that's great. It's somewhat concerning to me. I may have actually made my periapsis a little too low, because it looks like this might be a full-on surface encounter. I did not intend to bring my orbit down that much. I did not mean to break so much. Would you pass the periapsis, please? Pass the periapsis. We need to get out of the atmosphere. This is terrible. Okay, we've passed the periapsis. We are rising. Oh, we need to get out of this atmosphere very badly. Nothing is exploding, which is great. That's excellent. Oh, please, oh, please. Please exit atmosphere. I think we're okay. I think everything's going to be fine. Whoever told me that 30 to 35 kilometers is the right the right altitude for an aerobraking capture seems like you were exactly right. Seemingly, hopefully. Still coming down more than I would like. But I think we are in the process of exiting the danger zone. Yes, please, good. No? Please don't come down under 70. It's going to. Well, alright, we're gonna burn some fuel just putting this thing back into a stable orbit, but in any case, this doesn't seem to be an actual surface encounter necessarily. I think it would be if I left it alone, but I think I can correct it. I think there's enough time for that still. So yeah, the Science Junior definitely came close to having some problems. Let's just do some burning here. So apoapsis, ooh yeah, that's not good. We should have definitely set the periapsis much lower. So we need to get this thing pointed in the right direction, burning in the right direction. This is not good. This thing is not efficient in atmosphere, which we are. We're gonna burn through our fuel. What does this look like? Alright, coming up above 70, that's a good sign. Oh, please, please, please. Okay, now I'm cutting engine until we get up to that apoapsis. Alright, so we're basically at the apoapsis, a few seconds out, but yeah, this was cutting it very, very close. Still not totally certain that we're going to be able to pull it back from the edge of destruction. Oh, that is really close. Okay, come on, come on, come on, come on. Alright. Oh, apoapsis still not above 70. Get above 70. Okay, that's above 70, and then we can warp to that. Oh boy. Yeah, that was really, really close. We only barely had enough fuel left over to fix this. Whew. Alright, we've got it. We're at the apoapsis at 75 kilometers, and we have enough fuel to push out the periapsis above 70. There we go. Nice, stable, almost totally circular orbit. And 10 units, 11.52 units of fuel to spare. Excellent. Okay, well that is now set up for the ensuing rescue mission. And I am... Wow. So many parts trying... Why are those trying to break? They're inside a... Those shouldn't be... Words are failing me. Apparently, these service bays don't shield your parts as well as they should from temperature, from the atmospheric effects and heating of pain. Okay, well, I am going to head back out to the failed Nopesteroid delivery service phase 2. So we're going to go ahead and call the episode here. I'm super bummed about this failed asteroid redirect. Like I said, please, in the comments, let me know, I mean, what I'm doing wrong, what I can do right, how to approach this, and how to find out what the asteroids are actually doing, what their trajectory is. Because I don't know how I can effectively do this mission without having that information at my disposal. So, please, 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 please let me know. Because I desperately want to finish that contract. I still have, you know, like, that was a 4-year mission. Yeah, I still have roughly 30 years to complete it, so I want to do it, but I can't do it if I can't do it right. And I can't, yeah. All right. If you enjoyed this miserable failure, go ahead and leave a like if you'd like to see more. Yeah, sometimes I'm successful, so it might be worth watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not already, if you'd like to see that. I'm Infinite Spiral. This is Kerbal Space Program, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.